I'm Sarah, your English coach, helping you to communicate more effectively in English so you can thrive at work in the UK. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can interrupt and share your ideas in meetings without sounding impolite, and even if you're not completely confident in your English. If you ever find yourself sitting quietly in meetings, even though you have lots of ideas and a lot to say, then this is the video for you. Now, I decided to make this video because it's something that I worked on this week with a client. He works in a tech company, but he was struggling to share his ideas, especially in fast-paced meetings. In these meetings, there were certain people who always did the speaking, and it frustrated him because he really did have things to say, but it just felt easier for him to stay quiet. At first he told me it's because he was worried about making mistakes. He thought if he said something, made lots of mistakes, he'd look unprofessional. Of course, that's understandable. So we worked on what he could say, how he could say it clearly, and I would correct any mistakes that he'd made. But remember, it's always better to speak up, even if you do make a few mistakes, because you will seem more confident. Now, after this, when I dug a little bit deeper, we discovered actually the real problem. He said when people asked him his opinion on what he thought, he could usually share it quite well. Maybe he made a few mistakes, but it was okay. The problem was that a few people dominated the discussions and they spoke quite quickly, and he didn't know how to share his point and interrupt while they were talking. In an ideal world, in these kind of meetings, everyone would have an equal opportunity to share their point. But the reality is, in fast-paced businesses, often certain people dominate the discussions, and you won't always be asked your opinion. So we have to be more assertive. This doesn't mean being rude, and you can do this in a way that's polite and respectful. Important to note that what is considered polite in terms of interrupting and turn-taking in discussions may vary between cultures. In this video, I'm going to share things that work in UK professional culture. Now, the first and most important technique is to use polite phrases to share your ideas and interrupt. If there is a discussion and you just start saying your idea, this can seem a bit abrupt and random, and maybe even impolite. Not only that, but your idea will lose impact because everyone's attention is on the person that is speaking, not what you're saying in that moment. So I recommend using these polite phrases to get people's attention first. You could ask a question, such as, "Can I jump in here?" Jump in means to add to the discussion. Or, "Can I add something here?" Or, "May I ask a question?" Depending on whether you're adding a point or you're asking a question. Asking permission like this not only attracts everyone's attention, they will also then give you permission to speak and therefore will be more engaged. Another technique is to apologise. We are in the UK and we love to say sorry. You could say something like, "Sorry to interrupt, but..." You could say your point. You could even ask the question, "Sorry to interrupt, but can I add something here?" to make it even more polite. Or we can use a phrase to add to what somebody else said. Let's imagine your colleague John says something and you want to say something related. You could start with, "Building on what John said, I think da 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 da." I like this one because it connects your point to the discussion, so it shows everyone that it's relevant. And it also shows that you respect their idea. You're not just dismissing it. So just to recap, start with a question. You could even start with a little apology for interrupting, or use a phrase that links your point to somebody else's point. Not only will these make your interruptions more polite, it will draw everyone's attention to you. So they're more engaged, they're listening, and your point will have more impact. Okay, so we have some language that we can use to interrupt. But before we even use that, we can use body language to show that we want to say something. If you just sit back, people might think you're not engaged in the discussion, even if you really are and you're listening. So we can use body language to show that we want to speak. First, we can simply lean forward to show that we're engaged and we want to speak. Next, we could try to make eye contact with the person that's leading the meeting. If they notice you, they might even ask, "Do you have something to say? Would you like to share your point?" without you having to interrupt at all. If you're finding it difficult to get their attention, you might even raise your hand a little bit. Now, I don't mean raise your hand like this, like you're in school. Just a slight raise of the hand indicates to everyone that you have something to say. Of course, these signals don't usually work on online meetings, especially when it's a fast-paced discussion or something is being shared on the screen so people can't see your face. And especially if people have the cameras off. Now, I don't recommend having cameras off in the meeting. Showing your face always shows that you're more engaged and part of the discussion. Anyway, in this situation, I would just take yourself off mute and find the right moment to interrupt politely. Which takes me nicely on to my third point, which is finding the right place to interrupt. When you're in a fast-paced discussion, it can be hard to find a moment to say your point or to interrupt. There often aren't many pauses. But even finding just a micro pause, find a short pause between people's points and use one of those polite phrases then. If you interrupt somebody in the middle of their sentence, they might get annoyed and think it's rude and dismiss your point. A really good tip here is to notice the intonation of the person's voice. Intonation is the rise and the fall of the voice. Generally, in English intonation, our voice rises to the middle of a sentence and then falls to the end. So if the voice goes down, it's a signal that they've come to the end of a complete thought. And that would be a good time to interrupt. For example, let's imagine I'm the one speaking in the meeting and I say, "I think we need to reschedule next week's meeting because we have a huge workload." Now, there was a micro pause after meeting, but if you interrupted there, "I think we need to reschedule next week's meeting. Can I just add something here?" I would be annoyed because I haven't completed my sentence. So even though there was a pause, wait till the voice goes down. Let's listen again. "I think we need to reschedule the meeting because we have a huge workload. Can I just add something here?" That feels a lot more natural. Now, I might have had more to say, but because I come to the end of the point, it didn't feel impolite. You were just being assertive. Something you could start doing, even if you're not speaking in a meeting, is to listen for these patterns. Notice when people pause, notice when the voice goes up and goes down, and find points where you could potentially interrupt, even if you don't. Okay, so let's put that all together. Number 1, prepare and practice some polite phrases that you can use to introduce your points. Number 2, when you're in a face-to-face meeting, signal that you want to speak. Lean forward, make eye contact, maybe even raise your hand a little. And in an online meeting, just take yourself off mute. And finally, listen for those pauses, that falling intonation, a little moment where you can jump in with your polite phrase. Going back to the session that I had with my client this week, we practiced this in role plays. He practiced saying those phrases, feeling more confident, finding the right moment to jump in. And now he's going to practice it in real meetings. In that session, it was less about focusing on grammar and vocabulary, but I was giving him practical tools that he could use at work straight away. And here's what I want you to remember. Your ideas are valuable, so don't stay quiet. Even if you've been quiet in meetings up until now, it's never too late to start speaking up. At first, it might feel a little uncomfortable. It will take a little bit of practice, but the more that you do it, the more natural it will become. And the people in your meeting will start to get used to you speaking more in meetings, and you might not have to interrupt anymore. They might just simply ask your opinion because they want to hear it. Your task now is to put this in practice. Start by observing, noticing how your colleagues interrupt, what do they say. Notice the rise and fall and moments where you could interrupt. And then start by setting your goal of just asking one question, using those techniques, asking permission, using body language, and finding the right moment. Remember that if you want to feel more confident, doing the thing that scares you is what will help you build that confidence. So do it, no matter how imperfect it is. And believe me, with time, you'll feel a lot more confident. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be making more content around these topics in the future. If you're looking for one-to-one support, I'll put the link to book a trial session in the description. And if you want to practice your discussion skills outside of work in a low-risk environment, I have something exciting coming soon, so watch this space. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.